Okay.
I actually took notes this time.
Good, because I didn't.
Michael Jackson, $1 million. You feel me? Michael Jackson, $1 million.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, RFP Refugees podcast. As neither Trey nor John respected the fact that I had started the broadcast and did not look down, so you all heard some wonderful, wonderful interactions there. In case you didn't watch the game, DC United fell 1-0 to Minnesota United in what can be best described as a uneven performance. We'll get into that in a minute. John, how are you doing, my friend? How was your weekend? First of all, let's stick positive first.
How was my weekend? I haven't done shit. I'll be honest. This weekend was a real laying around do nothing situation. I've got to go get groceries after this, so that'll be the highlight of my weekend. That's the most productive I'll be.
Trey, you as well?
Got some cooking done. Got the Instant Pot going currently. So,
Cool.
that's a productive weekend for me.
We got about 2 people watching right now. So
awesome.
So far, and I think that's me because one of them is me because I'm
one of them is me.
Yeah. Hey, we got
nobody watching.
Cool. All right. Let's jump into this game. First half. I want to talk positively. First half, I personally thought things were good. I thought the 3-4-3, 3-5-2, whatever you want to call it, was working really well for DC. To be honest, I thought it was completely taking Darwin Quintero out of the game, which is what you need to do. Donovan Pines was an absolute beast tonight. I think he gets beat by Angel Rodriguez on the goal, which we'll get to in a minute. DC was generating chances. They were getting opportunities. I'll have to go back and look at the actual shots on goal. I know Rodriguez had that stunner that nearly set up, that nearly could be credited with setting up a Donovan Pines goal. But overall, I thought the first half, I had very few complaints about the first half, and maybe I'm alone. So I'll start with you, John. Do you agree with my assessment?
Yeah, no, the formation worked. Donovan Pines had Quintero in his pocket. That was fantastic. I had no complaints there. The attack was uneven, but I was attributing that more to, Miles on those legs, being that this was the third game in 8 days or 9 days or whatever, and a second away game in a row. So it was nothing pretty. I don't think there were a few moments of overlapping attack that seemed okay, but and also the goal that should have counted. But other than that, it was fine. I would have been fine with. I would have been real fine with 1-0 at the half, which it should have been, and I was okay enough with 0-0 at the half.
Trey, let's go. We'll get to that in a minute. I have some deep thoughts about that. So Trey, first of all, let's get your thoughts on the first half.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything that was said. I think the first 15 minutes, I was not super happy with our possession. I don't know what the stats were at 15 minutes, but I for whatever reason, I just remember thinking why is Canal so important in the midfield that we just accept that we are going to lose possession a lot of times and just chalk it up to that. But then I looked at the halftime. I actually looked at the possession stats and we won possession. So I don't know, maybe it's just me having a negative bias against the team in terms of that. But that was my main stick out was everything seemed fine considering, like I said, this is the third game this week, but for whatever reason, we just kept getting dispossessed and just little mistakes again that I just kind of chalked up to, like y'all said, mileage.
All right, well, let's get to the Donovan Pines goal that should have stood. I wanted to talk about first there was a great shot by Rodriguez, like I said, set up the save, went out for a cross, and then Donovan Pines goes up, and we have a VR decision involving Brilliant as he. I will admit that he puts his arm up, whether it impedes the goalkeeper for Minnesota, of whom I don't know, his name.
Vito Minone.
What's that?
Vito Minone, formerly of Sunderland, formerly of probably other places.
Fair enough. Okay. But whether he actually impedes the goalkeeper, I think is iffy either way. I could see an argument there. Is it a clear and obvious error? No. At any rate, so I want to go back to the Rooney goal in which VAR says that yes, Brilliant probably fouls the goalkeeper, but the ball is the goal. There's no way the goalkeeper was able to get that. First of all, Donovan Pines has about a good head length between him and the goalkeeper's hand when he makes that header. So in my estimation, I don't see how you can overturn that when, just a few weeks earlier, it was stated that there was no way it can't be overturned because, the ball was heading to the back of the net anyway, and the goalkeeper could not have reached it anyway. So that's actually my interpretation of that is I don't think you can overturn it. I don't think it's clear and obvious that he could have gotten there. And I really think that this isn't, I don't think a side against VAR. It's the way MLS does VAR, which is they have a different individual referee who's in charge of doing VAR calls. In my opinion, it should go just like they do for hockey, for some other sports that do VAR. It goes out to a central location, and they're the ones that either call the referee over or make the decision in that case. I think we're getting far too many of these changes in sort of how VAR is being called. Again, so that's my perspective. John, I'm curious to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think I've been consistent that I hate VAR, except for when it gives DC United goals. I think I've talked about that on the show in general. But in all honesty, replay across the board in all sports annoys me greatly. I think that the fixation on getting it right versus the human element of the game, the human component of a referee making a decision, forcing it to be based on the referee's best judgment at the time with what he can see, I'm for that. I think that there's a whole bunch of ridiculousness, particularly with the way, like you said, with MLS, with the way they do VAR. The clear and obvious tenant is obviously not being taken into account. They're basically just saying, I don't want to be second guessed. We're gonna take everything to replay that we can, and if it looks at all like it could go that way, we're gonna call it. And that's what it just feels like. And it slows the game down. It causes big stoppages in play that it shouldn't happen. It makes soccer feel differently. Like it's like the ref is another player on the team or another player that you're playing against versus just sort of being a component of the game. It's like a third element you have to contend with. So I'm against it. I would like to see it go away, except for cases of violent conduct, and then you could just have the linesman or the fourth official be the eyes on that if the ref just doesn't see it. That's my opinion.
Trey, your thoughts?
On VAR, I'm kind of all or nothing. I feel like in theory, I'm pro VAR. I want it to be there because I want the calls to be right. But I agree with you, Ted. I don't like this kind of like back and forth shuffling of responsibility of who inevitably makes the call, because I don't know. I just think it's ridiculous that they have someone who beams into the ref's ears to say, hey, you should take a look at this, and then they go over to look at it. It just feels like too many people. Okay, just have someone in a central location review it, give the call, and that's it. But at the end of the day, at least regarding this goal, I could have, I don't know. I could see it both ways where I would rather, I'm not surprised that it was called back, but I don't know. It's one of those things where you take the VAR with the VAR.
All right, before we get to some of your chat questions, by the way, we do have the phone line up, and I'm going to go and apologize if anyone tried to call in and could not get through because I did not have it set up right now, but it's set up now. 703-879-4844 if you want to jump in. That's 703-879-4844. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat as well.
I did it. It's already done.
Yeah, already done. All right, fair enough. Okay, very good. So, John, let's get into some chat questions. We do have some chat questions.
Yeah, first and foremost, we got Nancy Gregory here saying she had two questions. The first one is, do we think the players are going to complain about the field conditions? It seemed to be an issue early on. DC United just tweeted and then deleted a thing about what was the exact thing? Sort of like a bad game, just like their field. It was something about making fun of their field, and then they deleted it like 7 seconds later. But we saw it. Other people saw it.
Stop deleting. Don't do that. Don't delete that stuff.
Yeah, never delete. Never regret posting. DC United. Never stop posting.
Someone from the league might have stepped in, but
yeah, maybe they have all of their logins and they can just unilaterally squash stuff. Maybe we got to get into that. We'll have to get comment from the league. Yeah, the field looked like garbage. They're just like in games previous at the game against LA. Zlatan took a giant chunk of turf that came up and threw it off the field. There were players slipping and sliding all over the place. The thing about those things are always that both teams are dealing with it. Both teams are suffering with the grass that hasn't taken yet. I wonder the corner that Rooney took late in the second half where the ball went straight up and then out of bounds had anything to do with the grass. He didn't. The normal move is when the grass screws you up, you stare at the grass and then you look at your feet and then you look sort of incredulous, but he just looks sad. Like he looks like he was just embarrassed. So I don't know.
I'm gonna put. He was struggling with his set pieces all night, which is very un-Rooney like. And I thought that his that would the field seemed to be playing a role in that because his free kicks were just not hitting the way you would expect them. I mean, you're looking at these free kicks and you're like, no way he even intends to put that within a 3-yard radius of where he's trying to put that. He's trying to put that 5-10 yards out. So I'm not necessarily worried, I guess, about his set piece ability. I think the fatigue of playing, a whole bunch of games. Let's be clear. This is also, I believe, this is like their 6th game in 21 days. So DC's been put through the wood chipper this early in the season, and they're still standing as the first place team in the East. And you can talk about the way they play it, the way they got there, and everything. The fact of the matter remains, they are the top team in the Eastern Conference right now. And I'm not sure if there's anybody who's really making a point to unseat them right now. I mean, you would have said Toronto, but Toronto got bounced in their game, a home game against Portland.
Who also sucks.
What's that?
Who also sucks this year so far.
Well, they're getting better. So, I mean, let's not. They've won, I think, 2 games in a row on the road. So they're definitely starting to put it a little bit together, for sure. And again, they got a whole slew of home games just like we did. They've won double the games we won last season on the road. So let's mention that. But Trey, do you want to add anything or bring anything into that?
Nope, I think you guys all said it.
Yeah.
All right.
Nothing to add. Move on.
Back to the questions. There's 2 questions here about Lucho. And Nancy also said, is Acosta's contract future distractions? Are they hurting the team? And Jonathan M just said, how many more games of sulking Lucho will Ben allow? Seems if anyone needed a mental health day, it's Lucho. And this brings me to probably the most exciting thing about the game that we somehow didn't mention yet, was Lucho getting in Paul Arriola's face and yelling at him about something. What it was, I don't necessarily understand. He just ran the full length of the field to make a defensive play. There was somebody on Twitter said maybe Paul was finally yelling at Lucho for passing to no one else except for Wayne ever. I don't know if that was. I would love to know what that was. If we have any Spanish-speaking lip readers who could have taken a look at that video and let us know what was up, that'd be great. So Trey, hit us.
Yeah, I think what I gathered from it is my theory is that Acosta was mad that Arriola stopped play because on the Quintero injury. Anybody that watched the Leeds game today, very, very a little bit similar situation where they did not stop play. But yeah, from what I could tell, I think Arriola kind of stopped the play a little bit and killed that while Quintero went down. And it looked like Acosta just got pissed off about it, play to the whistle, which I agree to, play to the whistle. But
well, I think also with the Leeds game, I think there were certain players that were motioning, or certain people in the Leeds United bench or something, they were motioning to play it out, and 2 players just decided we're not going to listen to that,
like geniuses.
But, yeah, so I think that was part of it. So I mean, I'm not reading too much into this. I think sometimes, and Pablo Mara, I think, had the best sort of analysis of this. Like, look, this stuff happens on the training pitch all the time. It happens, with regularity on the training pitch. It doesn't necessarily mean much. It's 2 guys who want to win and one guy who clearly wants to win because he wants to be playing better, and he's not having the best season right now, especially after 2018. So if something else had erupted in that field, then I think it's time to concern. If Acosta and Arriola were yelling at each other at halftime or going at each other at halftime, or there was some other altercation or something like that, then I think that's when you start to worry. But one kind of little, disagreement, 2 guys who are kind of getting in each other's faces a little bit, I'm choosing not to say that that's a big deal.
Jonathan M with the appropriate follow-up in the chat. Play to the whistles, Rich, coming from a guy that shrugs and waves his arm when he loses the ball. So let's bring it back to bring it back to Sulky Lucho. Aside from the little conversation that happened, if you read Soccer Insider this week, Steve Goff had a very good primer basically on what could happen with Lucho. As far we've talked about on the show ad nauseum, really about
every week almost.
Sold, not sold. Let go at the end of the season, basically on a free. But I'm curious. His play. We said it last week. His play is nowhere near 2018. That's sort of, I think, at this point, I can completely concede that he is not the player he was last year, and the connection with Rooney is not where it was. Obviously, open play goals are not happening at this point, and it is in large part to the dysfunctionality of that connection, and that's all. I mean, it's partly them. It's partly the way that they're being played, partly the way defense is happening against them. But what? How long can the current setup go? Are they? I understand they're in first place. I understand that they're still getting goals and they won earlier on in the week. I feel like they've played teams that are at the middle or lower than them on the table. I think it's a question of, oh, hi, everyone's seeing my dog in the background. He wants to go outside. He's going to have to wait. What kind of change do you see happening? Do you see any change happening as far as formation, giving Acosta a mental day, giving him a little bit of a break? What do you think will happen or should happen?
And this might be an unpopular opinion. We're not seeing the finished product from Acosta, but I will say over the past 2 games, he has been playing better as John gets up to let his dog out. Good boy. So I think he's been playing at least a little bit better than what we saw kind of certainly during those losses against New York City and LA. Is it 2018 level? Absolutely not. But I'm at least encouraged a little bit that there appears to be a little bit more of a connection. He and I'm also noticing something that kind of hit me is I haven't seen Acosta like really try to make a run at somebody, and you kind of get that feeling when he starts like taking off, and then other teams are trying to like defend it, and he kind of goes and runs at players. I haven't seen that much from him this year, and I think that's kind of been. It was kind of nice to see. There was I think there was a play in the second half that almost, I think it nearly generated his chip where he actually went at players, had some space, gathered some steam and laid a nice ball off to Rodriguez, keeps his run going, and Rodriguez lays it off to him. And I mean, if DC gets a goal there, we're having a completely different conversation. So I will agree he's still not at 2018 levels, but I'm seeing some encouraging signs that when the team gets a sort of a break from games, that maybe he can get his head on straight. And I'll be very, again, we're hearing some more, there's some more brewing news about his sort of contract situation. So I'll be curious to see. I think we're going to start hearing some sparks go off as far as that goes. Trey, anything you would like to jump in on?
Yeah, there was a moment at I believe it was the 67th minute, and I think it speaks to what you're saying. There's, I think it was 2-on-3 with Rooney and Acosta up, and they just, I don't know, like if this was halfway during or the second half of last season, you would have seen them make a run in, turn on the jets, play around some players, and try to make something happen. Again, maybe it's just the amount of games, but they just hit the brakes, and that was, again, that's one of those moments where I'm just like, what happened here? There's another moment later on in the game, and maybe this was just DC in general. They just don't want to get forward on possession. I mean, I was looking and I was trying to count the numbers as it was happening, and there was like 7-8 Minnesota players in front of the ball and like maybe 2 DC players. So what do you do at that point? Anybody you're going to pass it to, whether you're Rooney or Acosta, anybody you're going to pass it to, they're going to get immediately steamrolled. So, yeah, no one, even in the second half playing, I don't think we were down at that point, but, playing a Western Conference team, we were playing really conservatively as a unit, and then as individual players like Acosta. I mean, he either got dispossessed continually, which is not necessarily new, but he just didn't have that little 1-2 play around players that just wasn't there for him this game.
By the way, Stephen Goff is reporting that apparently Leonardo Hara had injured his growing in the game. So
yay!
yeah, he's so more fullbacks out for DC United. So step in Akeem Ward, I guess, would be the the scenario there. John, John's leaving right now, so
I'll be right back. My dog is doing things.
All right. Well, I'm trying to remember. He's the one who's the keeper of the question. So I guess we'll take a break. We'll take a break a little bit, maybe from the questions, and get back to them a little bit later. But I guess the only other thing from the game, I do want to talk about something positive. I guess this could have been if this game ends 0-0, there is one person who would have been man of the match, and that is Mr. Donovan Pines.
Yep.
He was an absolute beast for about 80 minutes of that game. 85 minutes of that game. And he just, I mean, they were throwing everything at him and he was turning it away, making huge defensive stops. I mean, we were all wondering, will Brilliant be when is the team going to find a replacement for Frederick Brilliant? Donovan Pines is making that case, and he's making that case almost to the sense that you don't even think you need to look for a center back. Come the summer, we'd all kind of talked about, is the team going to bring in a center back to sort of replace Brilliant? Well, it turned out they did, and his name was Donovan Pines, because it's so rewarding after sort of all the struggles we saw. Like, we saw him play pretty bad in preseason. I don't think his preseason was very good, and we thought, okay, he's a good player. But I think he'll maybe get some time in Loudon, and he's certainly a freak of with a 6'5", wingspan. If he can figure out how to play, I mean, any cross is going to go right to his head. He's going to be the tallest player there, certainly. So he had a monster game. He's really grown. He sort of adapted quickly to the game, almost to the point where it's going to be a hard argument to leave him off the field. And especially now that Hara's looking injured, we kind of need all the help we can get. So guys, what did you make of Mr. Donovan Pines?
I tweeted that he's my favorite player like 5 times during the game, and I don't regret that, even though that he got beat for the goal. Just talking about, like, you like homegrown players, you like local kids, you like nice guys to do well. He's young, he's cheap, he's here for a while, he's big. He'll get stronger from where he is now. It's only going to get a little bit better, I think. His instincts and speed and technicality for his size are always surprising. It's going to be great. I think Brilliant will be a great third center back next year, and maybe for the rest of the half of the second half of this year. He's played well. I'm pleased with the way he's playing for the most part. But Pines is the kind of player you want to have come through immediately. I'm glad that they didn't let him go. I'm wondering if his options overseas were realistic or they were bargaining. But I'm glad that they made the decision to sign him this year, because it's been a huge factor for them to not have to like rely on Jalen Robinson to come in, or some random guy they sign from USL. It's been good that way.
So, I mean, Donovan Pines, you also have to think about it in terms of, I mean, I know he's only played a few games, and I mean, these last 2 games, maybe 3 games, if I don't know, my memory's not that great, but at least the last 2 games he's balled out. And if you look at whether or not once everything's back equal and everybody's healthy, what do you do with Brilliant versus Pines? You have to remember that Brilliant's he's coming to the end of his career. He's a player on the decline. Like, we're not going to get anything more out of Brilliant than we have already seen out of him. Pines, I mean, we don't have his ceiling yet. I mean, I know that he went through the college route, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but say what you will about what it does to player development. But I mean, he still has a few years before he reaches his full potential theoretically. So, I mean, if I'm looking at a long-term solution, I'm looking at getting in Pines there now and getting him solidified as part of the team, rather than kind of waiting for Brilliant to just get so bad we can't have him in our lineup anymore.
I will be very curious to see when, conceivably DC gets their wing backs back healthy, and gets in and can sort of shift back to that sort of 4-2-3-1, not using this sort of backup 3-4-3, and when it's just Donovan Pines and Steve Birnbaum out there, what the difference is. Because I think, some of it could, he's playing well. Don't get me wrong, he's playing well, but I'm wondering how much of that is the fact that he's got 2 extra center backs there, and to sort of he can sort of just all he has to do is just, like, I think they just told him, just take Darwin Quintero out of the game. Your job is to follow Darwin Quintero. Birnbaum and Brilliant will handle everything else. You do not let, Quintero. And then it became, okay, now you do not let Rodriguez, which again, he was mostly successful until obviously a cross comes in. And I think there's going to be some debate as to whether Rodriguez touched that ball as it went into the back of the net. Other than that, Bill Hamid was stellar again. Again, he's keeping this team in this game. John, did you want to jump in with some other? I think we probably got some more questions.
Yeah, we've got some more questions. Rithik Patel, who joined us last time, said Hara is injured again. Maybe we should actually sign Antonio Valencia. And then he said Mora, Birnbaum, Pines, and Hara should be our back line when everyone's fit. I agree with that.
I also agree.
I think we all agree. We got anything else? Latino Dog made a good point. He said, not only did he get mad at Arriola for kicking the ball out, but there's chances for VAR to come in and take a look at the play that where Darwin went down in the penalty box. I didn't realize that. That's a good point also. Alex X, we've answered this question before, but I want to make sure that we get to all these. Due to Acosta's lack of performance so far this season, does DC United take the risk and sell Acosta in the summer, or do we keep him? We have talked about this a lot on the recorded podcast. I think that I think we all want him to stay throughout the year, just so that we have our best chance of silverware, because we don't necessarily trust a replacement to come in the summer and fit right away. I don't think any of us like the idea that, Rodriguez will just shift centrally and we'll get Assad back and then we'll be better for having done that. I don't think any of us feel that that's better. I think it's probably a lateral move. So I think the podcast, please jump in, correct me if I'm wrong. The podcast view is that we would like him to stay throughout the end of the year and probably not sell him. If he's playing so poorly that we want to get rid of him in the summer, no one's going to want him, and the amount of money they're going to offer is going to be nothing anyway. So it probably just makes sense to hold on to him. Folks, agree, disagree?
Agreed. I don't think there's any argument. Trey, I'll let you do. We've talked about this ad nauseum. Your thoughts have not been registered yet as much, so I'll go ahead and let you have the next say on that.
No, I totally agree as well. I mean, yeah, nothing to add again.
Nancy Gregory, go ahead. Ted, do you have something else on that?
No, go ahead. Just jump right in.
Yep. Nancy Gregory says, I miss DeLeon. And, with all these fullback injuries, I also miss DeLeon. DeLeon got a contract extension in Toronto. He's also playing right midfield in Toronto.
He's also starting pretty much every game.
And
he's doing pretty well.
I watch Toronto games just to see him and see how he's doing. And he's doing very well. He looks like he's aged a few years backwards. He looks like his knees, his problem knees, his arthritic knees seem to be not a problem. It's early on in the season, and a full season may change that. But I don't know if we could have afforded him at his $300,000 contract. Probably not. But I think we all at this moment wish that we had him as a depth piece that we don't have currently.
Yeah, and I think right now, especially when it seems like every single wing back, is going down with injuries, and looks like Hara might be down with another injury, which is not good. Certainly for DC. I guess, hey, welcome. I guess Chris McCann comes back into the lineup.
Yeah, he's healthy. Yeah, next we'll just keep cycling out injured leg players over and over again.
I totally forgot about him.
Yep. It's a good sign. It's a good sign.
Yeah. So, DC does get a week break. Finally, it feels like they've been going Wednesday, Saturday to Tuesday, and now they finally have a week break. So it's been. They get a little bit of a time to get a breather and to sort of catch up. And also, something I feel like that was sort of brought up in the broadcast that I didn't really consider. DC hasn't really had a lot of time to sort of adapt and sort of figure out how to attack in this new formation. And I think so. Part of the reason I'm maybe not knocking the team so much is because this is sort of a formation that they're not used to playing, and they haven't really had an opportunity to work on. And so I'll be very curious, with injuries piling up, it looks like maybe we're going to see the same formation. And so that would be I would personally hope that the team would have an opportunity to actually work on this a little bit offensively and start to put together some better combinations and some better passes.
So DC does get 6 days here before the next game, and then they've got 8 days before the next game on the 12th. But then it goes 12th, 15th, 18th, 25th, 29th, June 1st. And then they have a really long break. So the onslaught is about to just come right back up there. And of those games, we've got home, away, home. So And the games are against so we'll just to run down the schedule real quick. So if in case you're not looking at it, this Saturday is Columbus at home, then Sporting Kansas City at home on the 12th, Toronto away, Houston away.
It's so strange the way I'm actually seeing Seattle is playing LA right now. And the Seattle had just played LA, I think like a few weeks ago. DC had just played literally Wednesday. So like we're talking like a week and a half in between when they last played them. And then they're playing their final game against Columbus. MLS scheduling continues to kind of baffle me a little bit. So, again, they get a struggling Columbus side and a struggling Sporting KC side at home. So anyway, sorry, continue, John. I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's Houston and then New England also away. And then the last two games before the big long break are Chicago at home and San Jose at home. So there are some, very beatable teams in that configuration there. New England is still horrible. San Jose has had a little bit of a turnaround. They're starting to score more goals, but they're also near the bottom of, I think, of their conference. Chicago hasn't really figured it out. Toronto is playing well, obviously. Sporting Kansas City scored 4 goals, I think, this weekend.
Correct, but they also they
conceded.
They conceded 4, and they've looked the CCL hangover is definitely, I think, still in effect for them because they do not look as effective as they did last week.
And it is also, I think, like you already mentioned, the fact that we're playing Columbus again so soon. Tactically, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. We're likely to, you don't like to have, I don't know. I feel like they have very recent game tape and we're going to be playing the same lineup. So, and we beat them last time. So I think it'll just feel like a continuation for them, I think, probably. So we'll see if that has anything to do with how the results go. We got some more stuff on the chat. Just to catch Atonal Tensor up, since he wasn't here for the beginning, Arriola and Acosta were arguing, we think, because Arriola put the ball out and didn't necessarily need to, and that made Acosta very angry. Jonathan M. said, today was the first game in which I felt Rodriguez was a decent player. He's been fairly underwhelming. I don't think I'd agree with that. I think he's had quite a few games where he's made an impact. I would say maybe 3 or 4 where he's really played well. I would say that he disappears from some games. I think that's a fair assessment. I definitely don't think that he's ready to be Acosta's heir apparent. If Acosta were to leave, I don't think the skill set's the same. I don't think he has the ability to possess the ball the same and get past players the same. But Trey, you have thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was
sorry.
No, it's okay. I think that we were sold a little bit of a lie when we were told or led to believe that Rodriguez would be Acosta's heir apparent whenever he leaves. When it's very clear they're not. It's not a 1-for-1. We're apples and oranges in terms of players here. Acosta, I think he benefits a player like Rodriguez and vice versa. I don't think that when Acosta leaves, we will need to find a replacement for him. I don't see Rodriguez as being that replacement.
I would agree with you there. I don't think he's Rodriguez's replacement. I think he has looked much better. He's settling in a little bit. He's starting to make some really nice passes and some really nice connections. He and Acosta, I think, have actually had sort of a better connection than Acosta and Rooney, which is strange to say, considering after last year. So I guess anything else we want to add? I'm trying to see. I don't see many comments.
No, we never really got into the second half, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, yeah. We haven't gotten in the second half.
No, we didn't say anything about it. We talked about what happened up at the halftime and then stopped. There wasn't much to say. They didn't have much of the ball. Acosta had one opportunity where he shot over the goal. He tried to chip from maybe 20 yards, which maybe wouldn't have been the choice I would have made with the look that he had. We had multiple subs prior to the 80th minute. Amarikwa came in and did not have the same impact that he had holding up play and getting the ball that he did in Columbus. Rooney as a central midfielder, I think, is probably not a good fit right now for the rest of this team. He had dropped back. We do not do the 2 forward move whenever we bring on Amarikwa. If Rooney stays in the field, he drops back, and he did not have a connection with any of the players. And the last point about the second half is that Zoltan came in and did absolutely nothing and made numerous mistakes with Wayne that have me really wondering who we're going to replace him with in the summer, because it's just not a fit anymore. It's just not working.
Yeah. And Go ahead,
All right,
Trace.
there's that one moment that Rooney settled that crossball like it was a balloon, and then saw that Stieber was going one way and passed it to him, and then Stieber suddenly zagged and went the other way, and it was that play died at that moment, and I think that's again I think Stieber is really good on coming in and running around and not doing anything. But that's what we signed Amarikwa for, right?
That's right. We can only have one of those guys on the field at once. The two is too many. Go ahead, Ted.
I guess the question, of course, becomes, I mean, at this point, I mean, we all kind of said, well, Stieber's a good depth option. But in 2018, he came in and made a difference in some games. The game against Chicago, he came in and changed the complexion of that game and made a difference. DC needs guys that can come in and make a difference. And right now, I don't think they have that. I think Amarikwa is fine. He's probably one of the one players I think that's okay. Segura has his moments, struggling a little bit now, but certainly had his moments early in the season. Stieber ain't it. And the team needs to make a decision. I think this summer, if there's one thing, if they end up losing Acosta in the summer, it becomes a completely different issue. But assuming if Acosta's here, they need to find a piece that can either compete or be a depth option out there. And they need to figure out a way to ship Stieber off somewhere else, to some other team that might be struggling, or trade him for whatever it takes. Get him off the roster and get someone else in there. So that'll certainly be one thing I'll be watching.
Nicholas on the chat says, fast forward to the summer, assuming we have a few injuries, then add some call-ups, potentially including Ariola, Moreno, Durkin, Mora, Segura, Pines, maybe Hamid. We'll barely fill a starting 11. They're taking a long break in the June area for some of those international games, so I think we'll never be actually hit with that many players at once.
Look out for the Open Cup, though.
Yeah, it's true. The depth will be tested. The depth's already being tested, so I don't really know what that means for this team. If these roster spots are not all filled in the summer, I'm gonna start going bare-chested to these games and writing signs on my chest about how Trey and I will stand next to each other so we can spell longer words about how these roster spots need to be filled, because you need bodies for some of these games. When we go play Open Cup games and we're already this hurt, I don't know what you do. Do you have contests to let fans play? I don't know what the plan is. They've got to do something. Nicholas also said the front office needs to build some quality depth. Maybe you trade Zoltan for 2 mid-range players. The problem being is that Zoltan, what we see is what the rest of the league sees when these players play. Zoltan's ceiling, we don't really know. I guess it was maybe last year, but he's playing poorly and he's not connecting with his team right now. So mid-range players, I think you might be lucky to get. I don't know. Let's play the weird. The market hasn't really happened yet for MLS.
It would take DC taking on a sizable chunk of that salary for any team to start to be interested in Zoltan Stieber. That's what it's going to take. A team that's, number one, desperate enough for some attack on the wing, who maybe is struggling or doesn't have really much of anything, and it's going to take DC taking a chunk of that salary, and maybe sending something else some other team's way, or you sell him somewhere in the summer window, when the July window opens in Europe and they can buy players. You sell him in that window. Those are kind of the two options I think that DC has. So the window's closing soon in May, so I'll be curious to see if there are any moves that are made.
We actually have a mooted players swap here. Nicholas says, why not Zoltan Stieber for Keegan Rosenberry from the Rapids? Okay,
I don't hate it, but
I think
it happened. Yeah,
no, I don't know either. But that does a need for need, I guess. Alex Gabaretti says, give Yao minutes and develop a franchise superstar. Yao is going to play in those Open Cup games. You best believe he will be playing in those games.
Well, if he's not with the U17 team, because right now he's with the U17 team. So I don't know when the U17 World Cup is, but I would bet he might be. I think he's pretty much assigned there now for the rest of the season. He might come back a little bit because I don't think the tournament's right up. But
he's why we didn't have a full bench today.
Yes, he is why we didn't have a full bench.
That's that. Alex X says Quincy made a great impact coming in on Wednesday. Quinspiracy is a thing that I have found out about from Instagram. I don't necessarily understand it. He talks about it all the time. It's a hashtag on his account. He has if you're not following him, I don't know what you're doing, because it's very bizarre, but it's exciting at least. We've said before we like his post game because he says things that actually make sense and are calm and reasonable and actually applying some analysis. And also he's got the weirdest Instagram account now that Jermaine Jones is retired and no longer like attacking his ex-wife like in real time. I think he's got to probably have the weirdest and most interesting Instagram. So make sure you're following that. Latino Dog says, I think Alexis Sanchez would be great for Acosta replacement. No, I don't. No, thank you. I don't really want that. I saw a little bit of Sanchez in the Chelsea Man United game this morning, and I don't want to say I beat him in a foot race. He would still beat me in a foot race, but the gap is not as big as it should be. I don't think. I think he's well past it. I don't think I would want that as a replacement. And someone also still wants Tommy Mack. Sure, bring him back.
Yeah,
forever. He's got a permanent roster spot.
I take Tommy Mack over Zoltan Stieber right now.
Ooh,
Truth be told, I would take him over Zoltan Stieber any day of the week. He's
cheaper.
cheaper.
He doesn't have his mullet anymore though. Gotta remember that.
Fair enough.
He has a short hair now.
I am perusing Quincy Amarikwa's Instagram, and it is a delight.
I told you. Everyone follow it. What's his name? What's the
Quincy Amarikwa? That's his.
Make sure that's your follow Friday for the weekend. RFK Refugees has told you. Also, what's his other thing called? Perfect Soccer. He's got a company where he does like sports psychology.
Yeah, Perfect Soccer, and I guess he does a vlog too on YouTube.
Yep. So he's the most online of the DC United players. So you gotta love that. No one else has vlogs.
All right. Anything else you want to get into?
No, I think that game sucked, and I'm glad that we've got another game coming up in a little bit, and it should be a win, I hope.
Yeah, hopefully. It's Columbus, who are also struggling, and who did not look like they had much of anything except cross the ball. So I guess with that, Trey, anything else you wanted to add?
Nope. Glad that the East is garbage.
Yep. Be very glad about that. And again, the fact that I don't think many of y'all would have predicted that DC would have just one home loss over, in basically late April. I think we probably would have projected at least a couple more in that game. So again, DC, this was a bad game. But I mean, if it weren't for a, Rodriguez across and then a Rodriguez sort of dummy, I guess you could say, then maybe we'd be talking about DC either pulling out a draw or winning this game. And John, you said 3 points. You wanted 3 points out of these 2 road games, and they got 3 points. And I would argue that the more important 3 points were the ones against Columbus than they were against Minnesota. So again, I'm not as negative, I guess, from this game. This is not as negative as I thought I'd be over a 1-0 loss. I'll be very curious to see if this team on a full week's rest gets Columbus again at home and if they can finish the job there, I think I'll be feeling a lot more better. So I guess with that, we didn't get any calls again today. So come on, we need you all to want to jump in and take part in this show. We love your comments, and this is not to say people aren't taking part of the show, but we love to hear your beautiful voices too, because it helps makes the show a little better. But I guess with that,
Ted, are we going to sing Wonderwall after?
No.
We're not going to do that.
No.
Oh, because I thought that was so cool and a thing that people think is very authentic and neat.
It is fine, but it's not worth being talked about, 4 or 5 times. Like, oh, here they're going to sing it, they're going to sing it, they're going to sing it. But yes, we're not going to sing Wonderwall. We're not going to do anything related to Wonderwall. Nothing, not even our closing music is going to have Wonderwall.
I could probably play it on an acoustic guitar like 99% of people.
I will block all of you on social media and will never speak to any of you again.
Oh, man.
I've already been through college once.
That's what I was going to say.
All right. I guess that twitter.com/RFKrefugees. Everybody give us a follow. Patreon.com/RFKrefugees. Thank you all so much for jumping in with the comments, the questions. Again, please, some people out here. The only 2 people that have called the postgame shows are 2 people I know. So I'd like to get somebody.
Hold on. We've got an offer to call the show and sing Wonderwall.
No, that'll be
sorry.
blocked.
We're not going to do that. Never mind.
That'll be blocked. But anyway, thank you all so much for listening. You've been listening to the RFK Refugees podcast. We love everything you all bring to the show, and we will catch you all probably next week. Vamos.
#conspiracy.
We
we could feel like them, rarely would we ask those things we used to have. Is that cool with you? That I wanna call you.
We're still live. Hey, everybody.